It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, the Detroit Lions defeated the Los Angeles Rams 24-23 last Sunday night at Ford Field to win their first playoff game in the last 32 years. The Lions were very solid all around, at times spectacular in defeating Matt Stafford and the Rams. Next up is a surprising home divisional round playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Lions defeated the Bucs in Week 6 at Tampa and are much healthier coming into this contest than they were back in Week 6. We'll look back at that great win last Sunday and preview the next matchup at 3 p.m. on Sunday, January 21st, as the Lions look to advance to the NFC Championship. Now, here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. This is a playoff edition. My name is Dave Drzezinski. Drew, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. We are very excited to be talking about this. We've got the whole round table here. It's a special occasion. We vanquished the Rams. And I say we, it's the Detroit Lions vanquished the Rams. Next up is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're here to talk about both of those contests. First, I'm going to start out with a guy I grew up with. Known him since I was 8, and I'm about 50. And this guy's is just a wealth of knowledge. He's probably forgotten more football in the last week than a lot of us have known in our lives. He's coaching. I'm serious about that. Coach Andy Shield, Marine City Mariners. Coach, how you doing?
Well, thank you for those kind words, Mr. Drew. Likewise, and then some back to you. Doing well, man. Doing well. I wear the Marine City pullover. I'm a coach for one of the assistant coaches for the Marine City Mariners. But the last time we could talk about a Lions victory, I was with the Marine City Mariners too, as a player. I had just finished my senior year of high school, and here we are in our 50th year of life, and we're doing this once again. So lots of fun, and it's great talking Lions football, active Lions football in the middle of January.
Coach, and just when you think that, the Metro Detroit area is the epicenter of Lion fandom, and it is, but there's fans everywhere. Oh, yeah. We went to Kalamazoo, Western Michigan University. I meet this guy from this place called Rapid River, Michigan. His name's the Youper Brad Harrison, and this guy's on the same level talking Lion football. He's got the Jimmy Allen, another one bites the dust 45, for goodness sake. It's Brad Harrison. Brad, how you doing?
Oh, Drew, man, I cannot be better. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else tonight than spending time with you guys and talking about this team and what it means to all of us and how where we go from here. So I'm really excited to get into this.
And we're all the same age here, about 50. And then a lot of times you get to that age, you get a little jaded, and you think, well, who's going to teach us anything? And then we meet a guy like Detroit's finest, Justin Merrick, and we realize there's a whole another generation that knows a lot about football too. Justin, excited to have you back. How you doing, brother?
I'm good to be back. Just talking Lions playoff football. Finally, I've been, through it where we made it. Got waxed or just early exit, thank you for coming. We'll see you again next year, maybe not. I got to be honest. I sat there at the end of the game against the Rams in just silence, like 5 minutes to myself, just taking it all in. I knew that we had won, but I don't think it still has sunk in yet that we're going to have another home playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But like Brad said, I wouldn't want it any other way to talk with you guys about this. And I think the sky's the limit for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. And thanks for joining. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Just click that subscribe button. Get alerts. Click that bell. Get some alerts. We put out content every week. We love talking football, especially. We got draft coverage coming up. The draft's in Detroit, but we're not talking draft yet. We're still talking NFL playoff football here. Before we get into the game and our typical review, and we're going to review the Rams game, we're going to talk about it in detail, and we're going to really talk about the next tilt against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's going to be a big game. I say win. That's a Freudian slip, right? But what I do want to do, I want to touch on this with the Youper and with Coach. You guys were there. I want to hear about how you felt being in that stadium, in that atmosphere. Coach, I'm going to start with you, brother. How'd it feel?
I mean, evidently we hit the sound of the loudest decibel level was broken twice in the same event, and it was this football game. And we're talking about all the concerts and things that have taken place, at Ford Field, and this is what broke the decibel level. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I think they said maybe they hit the sound of a jet engine like 3 or 4 times throughout the night. It was that stadium it's 22 years in the making that an event like that would take place in that stadium. That stadium now has a branded event that took place there. Where the Silverdome, had, the roar of the 1992 playoff victory over the Cowboys, and some epic things that had taken place there. This at Ford Field, this is the crowning achievement of it. And, it was everything that you would ever have wanted, and then some, for a Detroit sporting event of its kind. Now I just think, and I have struggled at times as a fan of really believing what I'm seeing, and sometimes getting a little nervous watching games, and getting a little negative edge just because I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And that's not happening. And will that happen? Yes, it's going to happen throughout the given parts of a season and those kinds of things. People are going to have bad games. People are going to get hurt, all that kind of thing. But right now, I mean, it just, when they hit the field, and whether it's the offense coming on or whatever the case may be, you believe. And I think it's a state of belief right now that we are rolling on.
It is something, man. That's a great way to describe it, Coach. And Brad, I know you've been to some of these epic contests, and I know you were at that 93 playoff game. I know you were at that 97 game against the Jets at the Dome. How did this one feel?
Well, it's a day we'll remember as long as our brains let us remember, and I'm so grateful for it. The day for me was, from the start to the finish, was just remarkable, and I have a hard time putting it all into words. I'll tell you, I took my 20-year-old son, who before kickoff said, "Dad, if they don't pull this off, I don't know if I can come back. I don't know if I can do this again. I'm so invested." And I said, I get it. Let's see what happens. But I mean, it started with, us going to our church that we used to go to when we lived in Detroit, Woodside Bible Church, in the morning, just hanging out with friends in the afternoon, checking into the Renaissance Center, going to Joe Muir's for an amazing meal, Motown music just pumping through the restaurant. We go to the People Movers stop at the Ren Center. There's too many people, not enough movers. So we just walk. We walk from the Ren Center to the Ford Field in about 6 minutes, because, man, was it cold. We got there about 6 o'clock. We walked through that door. You would have thought this game was already underway. There were so many people there, 2+ hours in advance. Get to our seats, and one of the I was so emotional so many times, but for the first emotion I had was when Jared Goff was walking down the tunnel, and they had him on the video board, and to hear the crowd chanting his name in unison. This wasn't like the Lions put up this display that here's what you're supposed to do. No, Jared Goff. And when he stepped onto that field from that tunnel, the place, it's just nothing but emotion, absolute pandemonium. And then we all watched the game, and I've tried to put it to words. I've come up with 2 words: indescribable joy, because I cannot describe it. I'm thankful we all got to experience that together. Whatever we were doing, however we were watching it, those emotions that you had, we had. And we as Lions fans throughout the world. So, man, indescribable joy is what that day brought me.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, and you hit 0.00 seconds left on that game, and they had that little pyrotechnic that went off, And pretty much immediately after that was Respect by Aretha Franklin started playing. And that perfect.
Man, that I mean, our only points of reference, right, Justin, is we've seen the Red Wings, we've seen the Pistons win championships. You know, we all got to see the Tigers win in '84. I know you didn't get to see that. You're a youngster still, but how did you talked about how you just felt the last 5 minutes watching this? What else was going through your mind emotionally watching this one?
I think Brad said it best. That's kind of how I was feeling too. It was just, letting the emotions just wash over me. Very proud of the team, proud of the coaches. And, you guys know I've been, a golf guy. When he got traded here, I loved it. And he had a chip on his shoulder. And, I was telling my wife the other day, I said, think about this. He grew up in California. He went to high school, went to college, Cal Berkeley, got drafted by the LA Rams, number 1 overall, went to a Super Bowl, lost to Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Then all of a sudden just gets dumped off to Detroit. Think about that. That's jarring. That's a culture shock. That's like, am I even good? Like, they're sending me to Detroit. Like, what the heck? And he just came here and he got to work. And look at, like Brad said, when, hearing those chants too, that was awesome. And I'm just so happy for him. That's our leader. That's our guy, and his leadership and his confidence, his calm confidence just permeates throughout the whole organization. So that was just great. I soaked up every minute of it. I still am.
Yeah, you guys hit it on the head, man. For me, it was I guess kind of surreal. I didn't really react. I just was watching with hopeful anticipation. But in my mind, the game was close, but I never thought it was in doubt. Because they stepped up early, and we'll talk about the game obviously. But yeah, a lot of emotions there. It's something. My very first game experience was a Detroit Lions game, and they were when I realized who Billy Sims was, number 20. That's all it took for me. And number 40, Jimmy Spider-Man Allen was right there. Freddie Doc Scott, those guys. And I thought about those guys, I'm like, man, they busted their asses here in Detroit, Barry Sanders, all those guys, and they weren't able to get it done. And this team's got a shot. And, when we were 17 in our senior years, right, the three of us, you didn't think it'd be another 32 years, but here it is. And but now 32 years later, back in the divisional round, hosting a game. But let's talk about that Rams game first, guys. 24-23, the Lions over the Rams. That's so sweet. I love saying it. Let's talk about that defense, Coach. They stepped up. I know they gave up a lot of passing yards. That's kind of the MO. And we kind of talked about this a little bit after the game. And I want to ask you this right now. Is it that the secondary is struggling that badly? Because it's been 4 straight weeks now that the Lions have given up massive yards to the top receiver on the opposition, whether it was Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, or in this case, Puka Nacua. Yet they've won 3 of those 4. I'd argue they won them all, but whatever, doesn't matter now because Dallas is out anyways. But is it that the secondary is playing that poorly, or is it just that they're just not getting enough of a pass rush consistently where they're kind of getting hung out to dry a little bit? What's your thoughts on that?
Much more the latter. Some of it, Drew, to answer that question, is the scheme. And let's credit Sean McVay, who's a great offensive football coach, and John Matthew Stafford, their quarterback, who is magical. He's one of the best passers in the game. Active players, he's right there at the top. He's a phenomenal quarterback. And maybe, I guess it gives a little appreciation to him, and coming in here as the enemy, having to see it through that lens to really realize how good he is. But let's credit Aaron Glenn and the coaches and the defensive players for the Lions. They made him one-dimensional. They were a one-dimensional football team. So what happens when we get into that one, we make somebody one-dimensional? 68 yards typically is not going to cut it in winning a highly, a hotly contested, competitive, really balanced two good teams football game. You need to do better than that because, okay, yes, Matt threw for 367, but we were able to pressure him a couple of times in very, very important areas and force some incompletions, and ultimately an incompletion that led to them punting the ball and us getting a first down and taking knees to win this football game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to, there's no hard feelings here at all by saying this, but guess what? This is a very typical Matt Stafford football game. He threw for a lot of yards and lost. So, I credit the scheme overall. At times I was getting a little bit like, geez, there's just so much space underneath. There's like no defense there. And we got to do a little more man under stuff or do some switch in or something. But, ultimately it was a really good scheme. They didn't run the football very effectively, which did lead to a couple of very important pressures that led to the Lions getting the football back and securing this football game. So yeah, I'm happy with it. We knew it was going to be difficult.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Brad, to Coach's point, inside the 20s, Matt Stafford is as good as anybody. In the red zone, he struggled in Detroit. The red zone was really the difference in this game. The Lions were 3 for 3 touchdowns when they got into the red zone. The Rams had to settle for field goals, and that ultimately ended up being the major difference because if you look, time of possession was almost dead even. The Rams outgained the Lions by almost 100 yards, but at the end of the day, the Lions made the plays that they needed to, and they were able to secure the win. But talk about the red zone defense what's your thoughts on that?
Well, to your point, Drew, I mean, that's the game, right? Like that's why we came out 1 point ahead of the LA Rams, and kudos to Aaron Glenn. You look at the talent, we're getting the most out of these players. Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell, and that defensive coaching staff, they are getting the absolute best they can from the talent that is on that field. And I'm saying that because that, we're going to upgrade that. That's going to get upgraded this offseason because it's that defensive end, the cornerbacks. So for what we're getting from these guys, it's just a testament to what they all want it. They all believe in what the coach is saying, and they're just giving it their all. They're absolutely leaving it on the field. And I just take my hat off to them for it. So, the defensive play that we're going to have against Tampa, it's going to look different than it did last week.
Right.
It's going to have to.
Yep.
But it's going to be good enough to win. So, I just take my hat off to Aaron Glenn and all those guys on that field because they are giving it everything they have.
Yeah, it's definitely effort was not in question. No doubt about that. Justin, I'm reading the local periodicals today, and there was an interview with James Houston. I forgot who the article is written by. I apologize for that, but it sounds like James Houston's planning on playing this Sunday, which would be an outstanding addition. They added CJ Gardner-Johnson back. Ducey's back in the lineup. Talk about the additions of guys like that, and getting off obviously offensive line, but on the defensive side of the ball, getting those guys back.
Yeah, first up, James Houston is going to be a huge part of the defense. Him, opposite Hutchinson and coming in special packages really creates that pressure. And, yes, we escaped with the win against the LA Rams, but Stafford would have been under a whole lot more duress if Houston, was inserted into the lineup. And he will disrupt Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come Sunday. So that'll be nice. He can be used, like I said, in special packages, stunts, delayed blitzes and whatnot. But second guy, CJ Gardner-Johnson, wow. What an addition. He is a leader back in that secondary. He's very physical. And if you notice, it just seemed to just rub off everyone else. I saw Jack Campbell, the rookie, getting real physical, almost WWE style on some of these tackles.
Oh, yeah.
John Kaminsky, he's got the visor on, that's awesome. That's a good look for him, but he's down and dirty. He's doing a lot of dirty work that people just don't see, the casual fans. He's doing a lot, pushing on that offensive line and, really, plugging up holes and whatnot. So, and another stat that's crazy that the Lions have held up to this point in the playoffs, they have not given up 70 yards to a lone rusher this season. It's come close. Eckler came close, and Chandler and the Minnesota Vikings came close. But other than that, they're doing a great job there. So if they could keep going, we are who we are at this point. But with the addition now of Houston, if we have this bend but don't break approach, and that's a good sign too that in the red zone, like, Coach and Brad were saying, we kind of stopped Stafford in his tracks. That's a good sign because that was a prolific offense and scary, that we, didn't let Cooper Kupp go off as well. So if we take that bend but don't break approach, we can continue to win games in this playoff season.
Wasn't it nice to hear Josh Pascal's name a bunch at the beginning of that game too? I mean, these are young. This is young talent.
And I really like, Justin, what you said about John Kaminsky. And I think we're learning, and that's his value to the team. I think we've tried to use him just as Brad, mentioned very well, the play of Josh Pascal in that hybrid end tackle position. I think we're seeing John Kaminsky's value being more at the pure form defensive tackle, truly being down inside, whether he's even playing some nose guard as well and doing some different things and flipping with Aleem McNeil from time to time. And Le'Veon Runzwieke is starting to produce a little bit.
Yes.
Enough to where I think now we probably have a decision to make around that 5th year option, and good. That's great. I mean, we that's why we drafted him. So, I mean,
true.
There's definitely, and this isn't a defensive personnel, episode. So, I know I'm sorry, Drew, for jumping in, but
no worries.
I think you're right. I think, we get good, and then it's a great point, Justin and Brad, you hit on it as well, Drew as well. If we're good in the red zone, okay, we're trading out, if we're swapping out 4 points, we've learned long ago in the Stafford era here in Detroit that we've settled for 3 so many times, and it just nipped us. It would nip us. And we're swapping out 4 points every now and again because our philosophy is to go for it more, especially when we're in the red zone. We're going to swap those 4 points, and those 4 points then become 11 points. So I mean, that's how you can beat a San Francisco. That's how you can get over the hump and make a Green Bay game or a Tampa Bay game out of reach. That's how you can beat a Baltimore or Kansas City. So, I mean, that's a great point.
This is exciting stuff, guys. I'm getting fired up more and more just talking about it. It's great, man. You guys are hitting it all. I mean, tonight, but let's talk about the offense a little bit. And first, let's talk about. And I loved watching the game ball presentations. And I watched Coach Campbell. He gave a nice, great speech. First game ball went to Brad Holmes. An awesome moment, very emotional. And they said, "You know what, Jared Goff, you're good enough for fucking Detroit." And he threw the ball to him. Let's talk about Jared Goff. Let's talk about him. They chanted his name in the pregame, like you guys said. It was awesome. Heard about it on TV. And man, Coach, this guy was borderline impeccable. Campbell called it out in the post-game press conference. He said, other than 2 plays, this guy was just razor sharp. Just focused and couldn't miss. I mean, look at these stats, folks. 22 of 27 for 277. It's almost 82% completion percentage, a touchdown, no interceptions, no fumbles, a 121.8 QBR. Coach, they don't get no better than that, does it?
It's championship level game management. It's championship level game management, which is the style of quarterback that Jared Goff does it at a lethal level. I mean, think about how this game got iced, how we were able to get the cigar lit on the second down throw to Amon-Ra St. Brown to ice this game. That was a tight window. That was a tight throw.
Gutsy, yep.
And kaboom. I mean, if I got this offense is constructed, and we don't need to say goodbye to Ben Johnson yet. We're going to, it sounds like. But you know what? A lot of his concepts, I think, will continue to live on, as we keep progressing. We have the type of protections you have for Jared Goff. I mean, it elevates him by the second. If you wanted to go into like I guess layers of legends or whatever, he can get up into the Montana group by the after 4 or 5 seconds of having an opportunity to survey and throw, because I mean he is a machine when he delivers the ball when he's comfortable. So I mean 81.5% completion percentage, no picks. 121.8 QBR. Those don't lose games. They just don't. So, I mean, yes, absolutely. It's the delivery that he deserved because, ultimately it was his game. That stadium was 100% behind him. I mean, and multiple times Jared Goff was chanted. It was chanted during the game, too, at timeouts and those kinds of things. And when it was over, when we got the first down, they started doing it again a little bit, and it was just so befitting. He was on cloud 9. He said it was like nothing he had ever experienced before. It was the best crowd experience he had ever had in his career, and he earned that by giving the people of the that are rooting for the Lions that performance that you have on that great slide that you made there, Drew.
Man, he's something else. Appreciate that, Coach, and appreciate the sentiment. Uper Brad, a coach touched on red zone offense too. I mean, God bless Matt Prater and Jason Hansen, but those guys became almost legends here because the Lions couldn't punch the ball in the red zone, and they made some hellified kicks from tremendous distances. And made it a lot of fun to be a Lions fan, even when there were struggles. But talk about Jared Goff and your feelings on his performance.
We've talked about it for weeks, fellas. I mean, he's to watch him be in complete control of this offense is just it. I'm going to go back and watch these games all summer long because it's just remarkable to see a man in control of everything on that offense. So testament to Ben Johnson, testament to that offense a lot. Like they're keeping him clean. He's not running around for his life. He doesn't need to because the way this offense is designed from a talent perspective. Would Jared Goff play this well on another team? Not without this offensive line. It's a result of the greater whole, the whole of the thing, the greater whole, whatever I'm trying to say.
Yep.
This is a result of a well-designed organization. And I'm not saying anybody could come in here and do what he did. That don't get it twisted. He is remarkable. And he's earned that next contract. He's our guy. I'm thrilled for him. And here's the other thing, like, is this offense designed the way it is because of who Jared Goff is and the player he is? Like, I think it all just works together.
Yeah.
Maybe this offense looks a little different if we have a mobile quarterback because Ben Johnson's smart enough to play with that. Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell, they're also smart enough to build an offense to the strengths of the men on the field. So I just think the whole thing it's working the way it should work. And I just take my hat off to the man because he was tossed to the trash. Nobody thought twice about him. Everybody talked about the picks. Everybody talked about the picks we were getting. Oh, and Jared Goff.
The salary, right?
But I'll tell you, here's another thing. How many times did we hear Brad Holmes say, no, I believe in Jared Goff. He believed in Jared Goff from the jump.
Yeah, I just read that too. I did not know the backstory on that, Brad. I'm glad you brought that up.
You always
Brad
talk. You always know. Jared's,
Yeah.
what are you going to do to no?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what all you people are talking about, that Jared Goff's not this or that. He's my quarterback. All right. I see why. I'm glad Brad Holmes is the GM of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not me, because I didn't have that sentiment. But Justin, you kind of did. You were a Goff guy, and you kind of felt that way. Talk about it. Did you? I mean, you're a Goff guy, but did you really expect to see a performance like this in the playoffs?
No, and Brad touched on it beautifully. This was the plan that Brad Holmes had in mind from the beginning, like Brad just alluded to. Everyone always asks, Brad Holmes, well, what are you going to do about the quarterback situation? Are you going to draft one? You going to get a free agent, quarterback, to come in here and, like how we've always done in the past, just, nag different quarterbacks, off the market and come in here, play a little, games, season or two, and then you're gone. That's not the case. But did I think he would play like this? No, but this is what a good GM does. You take, a guy that you believe in and you build pieces around him, like that offensive line. Then you build up other players around him. He brought Josh Reynolds, over and signed him, and he showed up huge, Sunday night against the Rams. Those two play together. If you go back, folks, and watch the Monday Night Football game, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago now, against the LA Rams and Kansas City Chiefs at the LA Coliseum. High-powered offense, but Jared Goff and Josh Reynolds took over on that game, and they were just lighting it up. So you're starting to see, you are seeing what Holmes had in mind. And all this time, all the naysayers were saying, oh, well, we need someone else. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. We need a mobile quarterback. And like, you both have said, maybe this offense would look a little different, but you can't ask for anything better. With the offense playing the way they are, the defense with that bend but don't break mentality, we're winning football games, man. Meaningful football games now, again, in the city with Jared Goff at the helm. So I expect to see, a lot more of the same of what we saw on Sunday, if not even more.
Yeah, I mean, you guys captured it. I had nothing else to add. I'm just really happy. The guy played out of his mind. That's great. Can't wait for next week. But let's talk about the running game now, gentlemen. Because that's been a huge part of this team all year. Just over. I had over 2,000 yards rushing this year as an offense. Now there were no 100-yard games in this one, but Coach David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And we'll talk about David Montgomery first with his 14 carries, 57 yards and a touchdown. He caught one pass for 11 yards. That was a pretty big play though. What's he added to this team, having David Montgomery here this season?
Well, he is kind of their finisher. When we're looking to move the sticks, if we have a 3rd and short and we want to run the football, it is typically, in our best interest to have Dave Montgomery in the game. He's the guy when we get the ball inside the 10-yard line often, is the back they kind of roll with as well. He has the north-south, power to his game, and he's quick as well. And he's not the biggest guy in the world, but David Montgomery, essentially replaced Jamal Williams in the lineup. He has a Jamal Williams type running style. However, I don't know. It might be just a burst quicker. I think Jamal's maybe just a touch bigger than David Montgomery. They're very similar sized guys. I think maybe Montgomery has a little bit more of a speed element to his game, where Jamal was truly a banger, a jump cut, one cut and go type player. But really he can be. We're a 2-back system as far as our primary touches out of the running back sets. We have other guys too, but David Montgomery's kind of that bread and butter guy, the guy that might have the most touches in regards to carries often. And he really brings that, just kind of, like I said bread and butter, meat and potatoes element to the Lions running game.
Hey, you need it, right? You need the thunder and lightning, whatever combination you want. And he's definitely the guy that's going to be banging inside the tackles. Brad, I mean, David Montgomery's had a special season. He made an impact in this game, as always. And he got hurt in the Tampa game this year in week 6. He was out just before the half when he landed on the ball. So it'll be nice to have him next week for sure when we talk about him. But talk about David Montgomery's performance.
Yeah, I mean, coach talked about being a finisher, and he is, but he also started it, right? Like that first drive was just textbook balance, throws, run, and it was David Montgomery running, and he started it and he finished it. And I did get concerned a bit mid game, and because when you're in the stadium, you don't know what's going on. But he was like Craig Reynolds was in there a handful of times, and I didn't know if Monty was hurt or what. But I was glad to see him get back into the game. So
yeah,
no, I mean it's Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, thank you. When Jamal's agent made his demands, we love Jamal, but we can't go there, so we're going to go here before we lose this other guy. Boom, done. So I am Tampa Bay's got a great defense, man. They're up all night trying to figure out how to stop this offense. This is tough.
And they better take some extra time because we got this guy too, Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah, he only carried the ball 8 times for 25 yards, but did score a touchdown, had 4 catches for 43. So once again, still 68 yards from scrimmage. Again, a lot of the damage the Lions did was through the air early. But Justin, talk about Jahmyr Gibbs' performance in this one.
Yeah, I thought it was, pretty good. He complimented, David Montgomery. Kind of need that, power and speed, combination. And that was, showed well during that game on Sunday night. But every time Jahmyr Gibbs gets the ball in his hands, go watch the tape of him at Alabama. He's just making play after play after play. He's a hard runner. He does not go down on the first contact. If you look through the whole season, the whole game log, he does not go down. He embraces the physicality. He's very good at slipping tackles, and he fights for every yard, which obviously that's crucial in the playoffs. So, I like his style of play, and he's scary when he's out there because you do not know what he's going to do. And he's getting better with his vision too. You could definitely tell. Late in the game, the Rams kind of stopped us, running wise, but, he was still effective, all game long, just for the game planning purposes alone when he inserts into the game.
Dave Montgomery, 15 touches, 68 yards and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 12 touches, 68 yards and a touchdown. That's what they had.
Yeah, in essence, exactly.
Well, that's exactly what they had.
Yeah,
with they both had 68 yards and a touchdown all purpose. On the nose.
So 136 total yards from scrimmage from your backfield. Pretty good.
That'll work.
Yes, it will. That's great. That's great stat, coach. And yeah, it wasn't the 100-yard games that we'd like to see because that validates everything. But yeah, when you add it all up, it all makes sense, right? It just makes sense. And before we get to the receiving core, though, Brad, we talked about the O-line a little bit. To be able to manufacture that kind of offense, to keep Jared Goff he took a few sacks, of course. I mean, that's a very good Rams defense. They're led by Aaron Donald, who, by the way, was awfully quiet in that one. They had a game plan, and I mean, he made a couple plays, but you expect Aaron Donald to be an absolute menace the entire game, and they took care of business there. Talk about that O-line, Brad.
Oh man, thank you for letting me do it. It's why this is the way it is. From Taylor Decker and Ragnow, Glasgow being here before it got good, right? And adding Jonah and Sewell is just going to be, I mean, he's Anthony Munoz, right? Like this is decade plus
good comparison
of all pro tackle play we're going to get to watch in the next 10 years. And he gets to learn from a guy like Taylor Decker, who is he the perfect football player? No, but there aren't perfect football players, but he's a man of conviction who stuck it out and is getting the rewards for it. and these young guys look to him and see how it can be done and how it should be done. So the work Hank Fraley puts in, the game planning. I mean, some of these runs were remarkable just with the pulling tackles and pulling guards and pulling centers. Like, oh my man, I'm telling you, defensive coordinators cannot sleep. They got to be having nightmares about trying to come up against the Detroit Lions. So, it's awesome to see them healthy together during this time of the season. And it's all summer long, guys. You got that NFL. You just keep watching these games. Repeat. We're going to see something new every week. It's going to be great.
I hope we can add 3 more to that library too.
Yeah, baby.
Hey, Coach, just a quick question about the line before we go to the receiving core. But if you're a D coordinator, how are you scheming against this Detroit offensive line? I mean, we know about the skill players, but how do you manage this line?
Well, you want to, if you have a type of a player that that's just an absolute savage up there, like an Aaron Donald type defensive lineman, a Warren Sapp of years past, an Ed Too Tall Jones type, where you could just kind of almost offset things away and try to funnel things to them, like dare teams to run towards a certain area, knowing that he can probably still set some sort of gap solvency and make the run play a tough thing for them. You can do it that way. You need to make sure that you're pinching. You don't want to blitz too much. That's not typically how you do it. But you want to probably make them urgent to the second level. They're not going to get a lot of double and bounce and combo blocks. They're going to need to get to the second level fast. That's probably the best way to be able to try to do it. And how do you do that with really good solvent schemes that have movement to them? You're going to have your defensive line moving around and stemming a little bit. You're going to show and not go. You're going to show and sit. A lot of gamesmanship at the line of scrimmage, making them make calls and trying to make them make a wrong call. That's kind of how you do it. And other than that, or just try to play football in the phone booth. But if you do that with the quarterback and receivers that we have, they'll have an absolute field day behind you. So behind that. So, it's what you do. I mean, we've long said this. We've known this for a long, long time, that the best teams have dominant offensive lines. And that's just going to always have to be a precursor to what the Detroit Lions are to be. And, like I said, we are going to talk, I could go into personnel real quick, real easy, with our talk here. But, we got to make sure that Frank Ragnow is protected with a guy like Graham Glasgow, because he may not be able to play 17 games. We need, interior offensive linemen that can play both positions, center and guard. We need tackles that can play both left and right. And that kind of, flexibility and versatility within, and play it at a high level. So, we need to put a premium, and we need to draft those types of players because they don't grow on trees. You can't just, pluck them off the free agent market.
That's very true. That's very true. And well said, guys. Let's talk about this receiving core. And Justin, I'm gonna run through them, and then I want to get your thoughts on the group as a whole. For the sake of time, so we can get to this Tampa game. But let's talk. We got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who, once again, lights out. 7 catches, 110 yards. Didn't find the end zone, but he certainly found the ball on that second down, that last drive to seal the deal with Jared Goff. A play that, according to Coach Goff or Coach Campbell, they run it all the time. So they were very confident in running that. We all held our breath and we're like, oh my gosh, they're passing. But, there it is. You get Sam Laporta, who hurt his knee in the Viking game. A lot of folks were lamenting, man, they shouldn't have played everybody. They weren't going to get the second seed anyways or whatever. But he came back. He's a warrior. He's wearing a big old brace. But, man, he found the end zone. He had 3 catches for 14 yards, but he found the end zone, and he was definitely effective blocking. You got Josh Reynolds. You guys talked about him earlier. He had 5 catches for 80 yards. Let's not forget Josh Reynolds. This is his old team too. So he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder in this one. They went to him early. They got him established real quick, and that was a nice thing to see. J-Mo got involved early. Only 2 catches for 19 yards, but you know he's a distraction out there. You've got to account for him deep. So even if he didn't touch the ball a lot, he was able to make some plays, and that's important. You know, I've got the poster up there, and I love this picture here. By the way, we'll talk about that, the drone display over the Michigan Central Depot. I'm gonna take that out right now. We're gonna talk about that in a little bit. But Justin, your thoughts overall on how that receiving core played as a whole?
That's the game essentially. You know, I'll run through them real quick. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he was doing whatever he wanted out there. You know, just catching the ball, good run after catch. You know, breaking tackles, getting the extra yardage. Sam Laporta, you know, on that touchdown play, the 4th down play, that was a DN that was on him. So that was a great design by Ben Johnson, you know, to finally get him open at the last second where Goff threw a strike to Laporta. Josh Reynolds, he basically took the spot of Khalif Raymond. I think if Raymond was in the game, you would have saw a lot of passes go his way early on, but it was Josh Reynolds. He made every 5 of those catches count, you know, for 80 yards. It was huge. And then you had J-Mo, you know, yeah, he had the 2 catches, 19 yards, but the 1 catch was a contested catch. And boy, did he come up, you know, with it. That was pretty good. So, you know, usually he's the speedster out in space or whatnot, but that was good seeing him, you know, fight for that catch. So, yeah, as a whole, you know, they got it done. You know, they got the job done. So that's all you can ask for from a receiving core in the playoffs at this stage of the game.
Yeah, well said. And you know, guys, when you talk about how this team played and just the vibe of this game, I mean, you had Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson on the sidelines. I mean, you had a who's who out there, right? The Eminem intro, he was at the game. I mean, he did a nice job with that intro too. That song, we were talking about that before we started recording. That's pretty badass tune, man. Eminem can bring it, and he's our age, so I feel good about that, right? He's a Detroiter, all right. It just electric atmosphere, and what's beautiful about it, guys, it's going to continue. And like I said, I want to talk this. I love this drone picture, folks. There's video of it too, and I think they had the Ram emblem up there too. And it was awesome. That's just a beautiful scene. And this building. You know, I lived out of state for 5 years between 2010 and 2014. I know the Youper can relate to this out in Wisconsin, right? But, you know, just the negativity you heard and saw about Detroit, like crazy. And this damn building was like the epicenter of it. That and the Packard plant. Well, they got to take one off the list now. The Ford family's done a fantastic job. Ford Motor Company's using that building. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. So I'll leave it at that. But 3 p.m. this Sunday coming up, a divisional playoff round game coming up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm going to invoke some memories here, guys. I'm bitter still because of number 1, 1996, that year, playoff loss. You know, actually, I'm sorry, 97, excuse me, because they beat the Vikings in the last second in Minnesota, 13-7. To force that last game against the Jets. They beat the Jets in what was a win-and-in game for both teams. Barry gets to 2,000. The Reggie Brown injury, the floor's shaking, right, Brad? You were down there. And then I go back to 1981. Doug Williams broke our hearts in the Silverdome. Detroit finished 8-8. They lost the last game of the year to Tampa Bay. Tampa goes to the playoffs. Detroit sits home. I'm being facetious, but I'm being serious too, man. This is an old time North Division NFC game, right, Coach? And Tampa Bay's coming to town. It's a different Tampa Bay, different uniform, but this is a good football team, though, and Detroit's got to be ready. Your thoughts on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Coach, and as the opponent in this one?
We got 48 years of history with this organization. And, you know, that game they played earlier in the year when they had the creamsicle uniforms on, and then we went with the silver helmets, white jerseys, silver pants. You know, it really brought back the NFC Central Division contest that we had at the old Sombrero. with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is a slugfest, old matchup. This is something, a team that we used to play 2 times a year. So, a lot of familiarity with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And yes, we did play them earlier in the year, beat them down in Tampa at Raymond James, 20-6. They didn't probably have their greatest punch. They're playing better now than they were then. And I think that can very well be said for us as well, because we did not go down there with all cylinders firing. We had some missing pieces there and had to slug through that, which was a big win because Tampa was in first place in the NFC South at that time, before they had to kind of reclaim that a little bit later in the season. This is a team that plays the type of defense that can get you playing real late in the January. And they could come in here and really throw a stoner up. In fact, I know they've given up, I believe, 6 field goals. That's all they've given up in their last 2 games. Because
stingy.
Philadelphia finished 32-9, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so I guess they've given up 3 field goals. I'm sorry, they've given up 3 field goals in 8 quarters.
Yeah.
Because they beat in the last game of the regular season, they beat Carolina 9-0. So in 8 quarters, for sure, they have not given up a touchdown. So, this is a defense that we're going to have to, to impose ourselves and have some tactical ways of doing it, different, multifaceted tactical ways to do it.
Yeah, I think week 6 is a good, it certainly gives you good tape to look at. But yeah, you're right, Coach. The Lions went down there. Jahmyr Gibbs was out for that game. David Montgomery didn't get through the first half. Times were tough, but Craig Reynolds stepped up and probably delivered the block of the year on that St. Brown touchdown.
Goff was,
he was good enough.
He did some things in that game that threw a big pass up to J-Mo. J-Mo got behind, put the top off once, and
So it's going to be a heck of a game. You can look at the records, and Tampa was 9-8. They're now 10-8 with their playoff win. That was preseason, and even right before the end of the season, I admit I had Philly going to the Super Bowl, and they scared the crap out of me on paper. They'd been struggling, but I'll tell you what, Brad, I was thinking about this, just maybe I'm just an old guy, but it was kind of emotionally exhausting dealing with not just you're hosting a playoff game for the first time in 30 years. You haven't won a playoff game in 32 years. Oh, by the way, your quarterback's facing his old team that cast him off. And oh, by the way, they've got your old quarterback who won a ring 2 years ago. And it's just the enormity of that pressure and stress. And then to have Philly come in with Slay and Swift, and then that defensive coordinator they got over there, what's his name? Matt Patricia. Yeah. My God, I'll be honest with you. I don't want to deal with that as a fan. I just want to talk football. I want to talk about the game. I don't want to talk about all these outside things. No, let's talk football. Gridiron, what's it going to take, Brad, for this Detroit offense to score enough against Tampa Bay to win again?
Well, I talked about that offensive line, recapping the last game, and I'm going to start there because of the strength of Tampa is that defense, that run defense. They don't give up yards, right? So how do we get a play action going? That line's got to push Vita Vea around, and that's going to be tough to do. That's going to be remarkable when this offensive line pushes around their defensive line. That's going to be a remarkable situation. But I think that's a way to start, and then that loosens them up and gets Goff on those short throws. The Amon-Ra's, the Laportas, they're gonna play a remarkable role in that offense. So I look at that. I don't think this game Sunday is going to look like that Week 6 game.
That's a good point.
I'd like to think. I know you got me talking offense, so I won't get on defense. You let somebody else talk about that, but I think our defense is more important right now against that quarterback. We got to make that guy make mistakes. So
let's talk about that one, Justin. I'm gonna let you handle that one. Let's talk about this. What's this Lions defense gonna have to do to at least stifle the Tampa offense?
Well, we talked about it earlier on the show. Pressure, pressure, pressure. When Baker is under pressure, he does not make good decisions. And you can go back and look at, his time on the Browns, the Rams, or, the Panthers even. When he's under duress and under pressure, he tends to make, bad decisions, and that's what we need to do. We also need to take away two players on offense, on their offensive end, is Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Mike Evans stretches the field. So does Chris Godwin, but Chris Godwin's used similar as Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you got to watch out for him. And then possibly a third guy, but if you shut down these two, you really don't have to worry about it, is their tight end, Kate Otten, who is very, very, very good. Also, their running back, Rachaad White, he could catch the ball very well. He did a lot of that at Arizona State, and he's doing that again in the NFL. So if we can get, good pressure on Baker Mayfield, and like I said, bend but don't break, you get to him. And I don't think he's 100%. I mean, who is anyways at this, juncture of the season. But if you get to him, he could possibly be out of the game, I believe. I think Baker is more banged up than what he's leading on for all of us to believe.
Ribs. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing too. Yeah. Mayfield, I do respect Baker Mayfield. He's a very good quarterback. I agree with you, Justin. You force him to make decisions or throw his timing off when he doesn't want to. Yeah, he's going to make mistakes. He's been prone to that. They have a good offensive line. It's rated pretty much middle of the pack. So, I mean, they're good. Tristan Wirfs on the right side, I believe, is the right tackle. And we talked about him when he got drafted out of Iowa. He's a good one. But they can be had. And Coach, I like Rachaad White. He reminds me kind of Gibbs, the way he runs. He's very quick, not as strong, but definitely dangerous. And your thoughts overall on this game and how you feel, what kind of start do the Lions really need to have in this game? Of course, we'd all like to lead 21-0 after 6 minutes, but that's not feasible necessarily. What do you see?
Well, the two elements of championship football teams typically are that they play great defense and they're able to run the football. So what do we need to try to impede Tampa Bay from doing is playing good defense and have them not able to run the football. Let's make them one-dimensional again. Let's bottle that up. That's something that they need to do. I mean, you hit it on the head. Baker is banged up. There's a lot of, it's a rib issue. It's affecting his mobility. It's painful. He throws footballs away. Let's get them in second and longs and third and longs, and let's generate the type of pressure that's going to have him throw the football inaccurately. Get off the football field, stop the clock, put the ball in the Lions' hands. Let's run the football. Let's get things moving. And and keep maybe a tilted field and just work this as a playoff game where we get more opportunities to score and are able to play higher percentage football on their half of the field than they're able to do to us. That's similar to what happened in week 6. That is similar to what happened. They scored 6 points. So it's going to be the atmosphere and the sound in that place is going to be very, very difficult. So, I mean, this is going to be something that, Tampa Bay, does have a little bit of a taste of when they play the New Orleans Saints over in the Superdome.
Yeah.
But, this is going to be, on another level. So, I mean, yeah, I'm concerned about, how well they play defense and kind of the way they're playing right now. And, they're a physical football team that they want to punch you right in the mouth, which I know, Coach Campbell likes. He knows that they're going to come right at us. And with everything that they have, and they're a tough football team. This is a team, there are some remnants of a Super Bowl champion. So, let's know this, that, hey, this is the next round in the NFL playoffs. And, I'd much rather be playing this game in Ford Field than down at Raymond James.
Yeah, that's more than a great equalizer. I think that the way the fans have been at Ford Field and the way as loud as that was, I mean, that environment is a huge advantage. Everybody has said it. I even the commissioner was doing a like a town hall or something today, like an interview. And he even said it's an amazing atmosphere. It's funny. Before we get to some predictions here, guys, I remember I was reading the Saturday night game against Dallas was one of the most watched. It was the most watched of the year. One of the most watched in Monday night history, at least Monday Night Football crew history. And this last game, this wild card, Coach, I think you sent it out. It's like the most watched game since one of the Super Bowls, right?
It's most watched game since the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, and what's funny is people were commenting, well, it's because America's team was involved. I didn't see the Dallas Cowboys in Ford Field on Sunday. I don't know. I wiped my eyes. I'm like, I kind of wanted to see them this week. I'll be honest with you. I had a sick side of me was like, let's go back down there and let's prove something. But I would much rather be in Ford Field. Don't get me wrong, guys. What's it going to take, Brad? Are we going to put a red X through that Tampa Bay emblem and be talking next week about our next opponent?
Oh, for certain. I mean, it's, not like, hey, this is going to be a cakewalk concept, right? Like, but the 12 wins were in critical importance for this home field. And Tampa's got a shorter week than we had, right?
Yeah.
They got one less day than we did. And so they got to come up here, and that's going to be important. I mean, what are we, 6-point favorites? And, the home field is what's important. What we have going on right now is something that Tampa just doesn't. They're living on a bit of borrowed time. I mean, beating the Philadelphia Eagles team in the playoffs is not impressive. That is not impressive. That was a disaster.
Yeah,
Matt Patricia just put his little pixie dust all over that team, and we saw what happened. So I'm confident that Coach Campbell will have the right game plan in place. I'm confident he'll have these guys ready to go, and I'm confident we're going on to the NFC Championship game the following week. So I'm looking for. For everybody who gets a chance to go and we all get to watch it, this is another one we get to remember for a long time. I don't let the other guys talk too, but one thing we didn't talk about for the Rams game, and I'm going to give Brad Holmes some credit for a 54-yard field goal.
Badge.
It's the difference.
It's the difference in. I don't know if Riley Patterson makes a 54-yarder ever.
No.
Not like
very, very, very good point, Brad.
Yep.
Thank you.
It took a Brad to recognize that a Brad did something to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my!
Let's not forget Jack Fox dropping him inside the 10 3 times too. Coach Campbell mentioned that. Yeah, the special teams were on point.
Couple weeks. Anyway.
That's a great point.
Go Lions! Beat the Bucs.
Justin, how you seeing this shaking out?
Well, we're going to have to weather the storm with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Todd Bowles and company, they like to come at you in waves. Their defense is stacked. Coach alluded to it, earlier. I think there's 17 players left over from that Super Bowl team. So, they're well coached. They coach themselves. You're really going to have to keep an eye on the two linebackers, Levante David and Devin White, two of my favorite football players today in the NFL. So just weather the storm, kind of just look back at that week 6 and see what you did there, kind of use some of those pieces. Gibbs didn't play in that game. For us, I already touched that on defense, what we need to do. You factor in the crowd, it's going to be a hostile environment. And, like Brad said, it's not going to be a cakewalk, but I expect to walk out of this, going to the NFC Championship game.
All right, Coach, how you seeing this shaking out?
Yeah, I do see. I'm going to feel out a slugfest similar to what we saw in Week 6. I do think Tampa's going to find a way to score, but just once. In regards to touchdowns, it's going to be real difficult. They're going to earn every stinking first down and yard and point that they get in that game. They're going to get 13 of them. We're going to score 3 touchdowns and win 21-13. On to the NFC Championship game. I don't ever want to say go Pack go, but if they do that and they can go to San Francisco and end that season there, we'll be talking about an NFC Central Division, Norris Division, NFC North game for the second time this year. The Green Bay Packers come into Detroit for the NFC Championship game. We can also go out to San Francisco and fix and get something done that we couldn't back in 1983. When we lost with Monty Clark, doing a little bit of a prey, on a field goal attempt. So
he was trying. We're
gonna be talking about one of those scenarios next week.
God's impartial in these situations, I think, and those nasty candlestick wins conspired against us. But I see it 23-16. I agree with all of you guys. And that's not just blind fandom. I do think the Lions win this game as long as they play their A game. No turnovers. Stick to what got you there. Good hard running. One thing I would like to see a little more of in this game, and because I think Justin, you brought up the aggressiveness of the Tampa Bay defense. Todd Bowles, that's how he likes to play, and it works. Let's see some tempo on offense. Let's make them uncomfortable, because when the Lions run their 4-minute drill, they move the ball at will, and I don't care who they're playing. Now, you can't it's tough to play that way the whole game, and it's not really feasible. But I'd like to see some tempo early to really, really throw a haymaker early. Put them on their heels right away. Get that crowd juiced. They're going to be all ready. I mean, if you can come out and hit them hard real quick in the mouth, and then that crowd just going to be unbelievable. That I'm going to tell you what. I wasn't at I watched the game, and you could tell it definitely. That Rams team is poised, though. Matt Stafford's poised. But, man, I'll tell you what. When I was at that 97 game against the Jets, holy crap, the Jets were – Neil O'Donnell was like this. I can't hear. And they're like, what do you want us to do about it? It's like, too bad. They even warned the crowd they were going to penalize the Lions. And the place, it's like the place just erupted after that. But I mean, yeah, the crowd noise is a huge factor. I would think they're going to be very prepared for it, but you can be as prepared as you want, and it's very difficult when you're actually experiencing it. I've never personally done that, but oh my goodness, that's going to be a loud barn. And I got to ask you, Brad, because needless to say, being the Youper, you've been living in Wisconsin. Green Bay is a special game, and anytime we play the Packers every year. What would that mean? I know Lions have played the Packers in the playoffs, obviously, a couple times in 93 and 94 in the wild card rounds, but for the NFC Championship, what's life going to be like up in Rapid River?
Pins and needles. I don't want it, man. I mean, I don't want it. It's too much. I mean, we just had to prepare for Matthew Stafford, right? Like, at some point, can't we just play a football game that just is a football game? But I mean, I guess I live here. I don't spend a lot of time listening to local stations here and whatnot. I spend there's so much good Lions content online. Like, I'm all in listening to everything from Detroit, but they're living on borrowed time, right? Like, but that's dangerous, right? Like, they shouldn't be here, but they are, and they're playing loose. Yeah. The defense is good. The quarterback's playing well. The running back finally showed up. So, I mean, they're just loose and just going. I think Dallas might have been. I think Dallas gets tight in the playoffs. I don't think that's an impressive win. I mean, they beat them bad, but there's so much going on. There's so much going on in Dallas during that first round of the playoffs that I think anybody can go in there and beat that team because of their head. So San Francisco's a different level. I do like the idea of winning 2 games at home and Dan Campbell circling the wagons tight. We're going out west, and it's just us against the world. I just think that would be a Dan Campbell special. So I don't need Green Bay winning on Sunday, personally.
I hear you with that narrative. That's why I really wasn't interested in Philly with all that other nonsense. But I don't fear. Honestly, I can't tell. I can honestly tell you, I don't believe there was another season where I didn't fear going on the road, no matter what. This team, I don't really fear them being on the road. I mean, I'd rather them be at home, obviously, but I'm not afraid of going on the road and seeing the Lions play a road game. It doesn't bother me at all. I think they have an excellent opportunity to win a football game anywhere. And they were above 500. And you know what? And it's ironic. Dallas was at home, but the teams that really were dominant at home but maybe struggled on the road, and a lot of them are in advance. And ironically, they played at home. It's just weird. But Coach, any final thoughts for this one before we wrap her up?
No, hey, I mean, I just, I'm truly believe in the mantra of respect all, fear none. Am I afraid of this game and the season ending here? No, I mean, don't want that to happen, obviously. No, I'm not afraid of that happening. It's going to happen one way or another within the next month. So, what is it going to take? Like we had talked about, does this team that we're going to play the type of defense that could make it real difficult for us? And if we're midway through the third and we haven't done too much, I'm going to, and yeah, it's a tight ball game or we're up 6-3 or something like that. That's a great concern for me. Because that's the type of football I think Tampa's willing to play. And we can do that for a little while. I would love to be able to see us have the ball coming out in the second half for once, rather than always being concerned about the second half swing happening to us. But, hey, we've got to be able to establish and run the football, and we've got to play a better defense than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is not an easy task. That's what it's going to take for us to advance and get to the Final Four of this league.
It's going to be exciting. Division round. Here we go. We haven't seen this since 1991. Once again, there's that year again. But a lot of demons were exercised last Sunday, and let's hope for more and let's hope for better this Sunday. And then we'll be talking about an NFC Championship game next week. For Detroit's finest, Justin Merriquin, for the Uper, Brad Harrison, and for Coach Andy Shield, my name is Drew. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that like button. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Take care. We'll talk to you next week. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and for your support. Remember, when you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.